All right, so I got an Ask HershNoeie question from someone who lives in Seattle, and their biggest thing for me is, um, or I guess their biggest question for me is, kind of if it makes sense for them to move, and they kind of share their reasons for wanting to move. Those reasons make a lot of sense to me. But generally, their main thing is, does it make sense to move to Tacoma from Seattle because the quality of life in Seattle has changed drastically? Make sure you join our Discord, which is going to be down in the description box below. We talk about a ton of different things, and it's uncensored generally. Um, my sister sent me some. Sorry, but anyway, so this person, I have their email up, but they were basically saying that recently in the news they were talking about how over 100 police officers have left the city of Seattle, and due to a lot of different things, I think just frustration overall, some of the city council type stuff going on. They had mentioned that this person in this email mentioned to me the tax situation. Essentially, they feel like that's going to chase out a lot of companies. They talk about downtown Seattle, and a lot of the areas that used to be prime locations are now facing a lot of blight because of a lot of different things, from crime to everything, right? And by the way, if you hear a lot of noise, my girls are playing Brawlhalla, and they get into it. But I cannot lie. This is a tangent, okay? I play Brawlhalla, and I really get into it. There's times when I've played, just yesterday I played, and it's the funniest thing because people get mad when you hit them, and they try to come after you, and the game is just funny. It's just funny. I mean, I literally laid on the floor and I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard, I was like gasping for air. My stomach was hurting. Like, I literally almost fainted. I was laughing so hard. It was just the funniest thing, man. I just love that game. And the way that you just shoot all over the place is just funny. But anyway, it's not what this video is about. Back on topic. Um, so this person mentions that, I've done a lot of videos talking about, well, they said you've done a lot of videos talking about Tacoma and Seattle, what you like about both, what you dislike about both. Things have changed drastically since you've been in Tacoma, I feel. When it comes to Seattle, a lot of things that you probably took for granted or that you found was appealing are no longer the case. At least that's how I feel. She goes on to say that her biggest concern is it worth actually selling and moving? She feels like it's a drastic thing to do. They do have 3 kids, 2 of which are in school, so similar to my circumstance. She mentioned that she doesn't want to just uproot the kids out of school, so any sort of move would actually have to wait until the school year is done. She is a stay-at-home mom, and her husband does work in Seattle and would obviously keep that job. But her biggest thing is, should they move? She cites a lot of different things as being a bit of a problem, and her concern is that it's not going to get any better. She also mentions her top reasons as for wanting to move. She mentions the fact that things like crime and things like that are increasing there, the tax situation. She says that she feels that the city council is abhorrent, you know. She doesn't like the direction that the city is going. She mentions that there's a lot of great things about Seattle, but there are certain things that really and truly do trouble me. The home prices are definitely great and they're going up, so that's a good thing. But her concern is the taxes, the property taxes, the crime, and she feels like things are not going to get are not going to get any better. So she said, to sort through all of this, my biggest issue is, where would we live down in Tacoma? I've only been a handful of times. I've kind of enjoyed it each time I've been there. It's not nearly as busy, and so I think I'm looking for something that is suitable for the lifestyle that I want to lead. We want to be in a much more quiet area and not around all of the hustle and bustle. She goes on to talk about she remembers as a kid being able to bicycle down the street and not have to worry about cars everywhere. And she mentions that she wants her kids to be able to have access to these important values. What else? Hold on, I gotta scroll. I'm sorry. I know this is a lot of face, but I gotta scroll. Um, do, 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 do. Okay, so kind of the same things, right? She's going through and talking. Here's my take on it, right? Seattle is going through a period where I think a lot of people are questioning the city. I don't want to turn this into a political type of thing, so I'm not going to go there. But who you have in office does really affect a lot of things. There are things that the city council in Seattle has done that I don't agree with. This is the beauty of being politically neutral. I love it, right? I could talk about the stupidity on both sides, and it's great. I mean, when people I bring up something, people are like, yeah, but such and such do this. I'm like, yeah, you're right. They're just as stupid. But you have people who really and truly should not be in politics, in my opinion, and should be community activists. What happens is that you have people who are not trained in psychology or the human dynamic. And so they end up taking what they think would make a lot of sense, and they're trying to put it into real world events, and it doesn't work that way. It sounds great, but it just doesn't work that way. And the more we are a capitalistic society, period. There are certain things that are not, but we by and large are. And when you try to do a dramatic shift, which some people want to do, hold on a second. Okay, I have to get on them. But when you have a massive shift that you're trying to do because you value people, and there's nothing wrong with that. What you end up doing is creating chaos. And you actually work against your objective because people will use the failures by saying this is why that doesn't work. When in reality, things take time. The things that some of the folks on the city commission in Seattle want take time. You implement in stages. You don't just go full on. One of the big things I think in terms of politics are there needs to be people who are qualified. You need to really understand law. You need to understand policies and really how to read them, because laws are open for interpretation. Policies are open for interpretation. And there are very few people in America who are qualified to truly read through policy and law. Even some attorneys can't read through certain laws and policies. That's just not down their lane. That's why you have certain specific attorneys that deal with everything from, constitutional law to immigration to budget and finance and everything else, because and even federal laws outside of the Constitution. There are certain attorneys that are more on the consumer side of things that have to specialize. You can't just go get a regular old attorney that charges a couple $100 an hour. You have to get someone who's making a lot of money because they are a specialist in that particular part of law. You understand what I'm saying? When you don't have that, and you just have anybody that can run for office and they get into a city the size of Seattle, you can make some major, major mistakes. And it takes a long time to fix it. And I think that's what folks don't quite understand. If it was easy to where you could just give everybody everything, that would have happened. But it doesn't work like that. Because somewhere along the line, human beings by default will try to find a way out of something. You understand what I'm saying? So, or they will try to find a way to butcher something up. It's just by design how we are. You may have the best of intentions and the best, you're hoping for the best, and on paper, it's just beautiful. But when you implement it, it has a boomerang effect because it affects every single person. I'll get back to what this lady is talking about. But that's what you're seeing in Seattle. The problem with Seattle, and you have people who are saying the capitalistic system is wrong because that's why you see a lot of businesses closing because it's capitalistic. The rents keep going up, so mom and pop shops can't afford it. The whole Amazon is taking over everything, so it's driving businesses out. Normal big businesses are losing because of places like Amazon or companies like Amazon. So that's shutting stuff down, and then people can't afford anything because of this capitalistic society, and now everything's so expensive, people are basically on the streets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if we only do it this way, where we give everybody everything and we pretty much give everybody $100,000 salary, then everything gets fixed. But what they don't understand is that, and I could tell you this because I'm not rich, but I was poor. I was born poor, grew up poor, and I've accumulated some okay money. But the more money you get, the more bills you get, and the bigger and thicker the bills are. It doesn't change unless you uber wealthy like Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. That's different. But still, like the more money you make, the bigger your bills get. And so, because just in America, we buy a lot of crap we don't need. So you're going to end up having people who live right at their means. I talk about this. If you can get a house for $380,000, but the bank says, "Hey, I can approve you for $500,000," get the $380,000 house. This isn't the Real Housewives of whatever county. This is real life. So people do that and they get themselves in trouble. I'm not saying that's your circumstance, man, but people do that because they're able to do it. I see so many people who have a good job, and that doesn't mean crap because you're indisposable. If you don't own it, I mean, you're just basically dust, and dust can blow away. That's just the reality. I don't care if you've been in a job for 50 years. Every business at one point will fail. Every industry at one point will eventually fail. It's just the reality of it. And there will come a point in time when even if you are in demand, that doesn't mean that you're going to always be in demand. And that even if you're in demand today, there could be somewhere along the line someone says, "Nah, I'm done with you. I can hire someone else." That's why I never, ever buy something that I know I can't afford at least 2 or 3 times. I've learned that that's never a good thing. And you see people who do that. Most people who have the houses they have can't really afford their house. That's just facts. Most of the people I know cannot truly afford their house. I'm just being real. So with all that said, Seattle has a lot of different burdens that it's trying to really deal with and grapple with. It's dealing with a massive population that's increased. It's dealing with the police department size that is actually dwindling. It's dealing with budget issues and budget crunches and different things like that. It's dealing with the big sickness that's going on. It's dealing with Amazon that's probably teetering out. I mean, it's basically paddling its way across the lake to Bellevue. And you have other companies shutting down, not only due to the sickness, but just in general. You have a tourism industry that's been shot. Seattle is dealing with a lot of different things that other communities don't really have to deal with as much, but they're still feeling the punch. Don't get me wrong, it's not like we're all immune, but Seattle is greatly impacted because it has leveraged itself so hard, similar to what people do when they can't afford a lot of the stuff that they get. And that's what you're dealing with. And when you have a city council that really doesn't know what they're doing, no offense, they really don't know what they're doing, it becomes a problem. And there are some people, and I'll say this, who were great governors or great senators, but that doesn't mean they have what it takes to be the step up. That doesn't mean that you're going to be, if people think that, well, I've been in government before. I mean, crap. You know what I mean? Like, if you're from a state that has 4 million people, trying to run a country that has 300 and something million is a way different deal. Way different. And so what I'm saying is a lot of these people have never created, in Seattle, the city council never created a single job. But they're trying to create policies to supposedly help everybody, but you're pushing jobs away with some of the policies that they're creating, some of the plans that they're creating. There's certain things that they're doing. There's so many different taxes that they keep putting on people. And guess what happens? People vote with their feet. It's gonna happen. And you're dealing with an entire King County now under pressure because now, like I thought, Seattle put in basically an income tax. If you're making a certain amount of money, King County's doing it too. So just because Amazon moved to Bellevue doesn't make them immune. It just means that they're not going to be taxed so heavily. But they're still going to face a income tax due to the fact that they're going to be in King County. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I'm just being honest. To me, I don't understand Amazon's logic of going to Bellevue or any of those companies going to Bellevue. That, to me, you go from an expensive market to an even more expensive market in the same county. It's just, I don't get it. But to me, there's so many donut counties around here that really and truly the talent is centralized in Seattle that you can have markets. I don't get it. I don't understand it. When you go to Southern California or if you go into the Bay Area, you don't have that same situation because companies don't just all locate in San Francisco or all locate in San Jose. They don't do that. They spring around different areas and it just, I don't know. But anyway, that's besides the point. Getting back to what you were saying. I think that Tacoma has a lot of good things. One of the things you have to understand is that crime is going up everywhere. And I think that no one really has a true understanding as to why. It could be due to everybody just stir crazy because they're being cooped up, because they have to wear a mask when they go out, because of the sickness that's going on, because people are being laid off and stress. And there's a whole host of things that probably are leading to that. I don't know. Excuse me. There's a lot of different things in society right now, a lot of negativity. Not only, and people want to put the negativity on politicians. They are negative. Don't get me wrong. But there's been a lot of negativity just from society on a day-to-day. And social media is just toxic. So part of the reason why there's so much crime, I think, is due to those things, those factors that come into play. So it's not just Seattle. Tacoma has faced a lot of things. I mean, we've had a whole lot of, killings down here that they haven't seen in over a decade. So there's a lot of that. I will say, and I agree with you, that Tacoma, in my opinion, and I've said this 5 years ago, and I have a friend of mine, he's an acquaintance, who basically thought I was an idiot. And somebody else who thought I was an idiot. Because Seattle's the golden child. But the writing was on the wall, and I've always said that. The writing's on the wall. Seattle is a great city. I'm not going to say that it isn't. But I've had people, when I had made comments, I've had people from Seattle dog me out. Well, if you don't like it, leave. And I'm like, I already left. If you don't like it, go back to where you're from. And I'm like, it's not like I don't like it. I'm just saying there's certain things I don't like, and that's my That's my prerogative. I don't have to sit here and just love every single thing about a city just cuz. And just because I don't like one thing or two things, I gotta go. It's not for you to decide. People who say that typically do very little to improve their community, right? But they want to tell people where to go. But I think that one of the big issues is that you have a city that's kind of in crisis. Some of these other cities are not necessarily facing the same situation. Now, Everett kind of is because Boeing is moving production lines out and all of that. That's a big mess. But a lot of the other cities aren't really dealing with all of the things that Seattle is. We don't have the luxury of a ton of tourism. See, that's part of the big issue. SeaTac Airport is a hub, obviously. It used to get tons and tons and tons of flights that come in and out. It went from being a no place to just a busy, busy hub over the last few years, and they're already out of space. Really and truly, they need another airport, probably about half the size of that airport, just to deal with it. The fact that you have there's actually three airports, commercial airports technically, right? There's one up in Everett, there's one north of there, I believe, and then there's SeaTac, right? You technically need another, because the one up in Everett's not really that big of a deal. It handles a few little flights, but they're like little domestic things, and they're not that big of a deal. I mean, it's great, but it's just a 2-gate airport. But you really and truly need something that's got at least 10 to 15 gates minimum. And the stress is on Seattle as a whole, right? There's a lot of stress. When the airport itself is not functioning because of a sickness, you have a whole bevy of people who are now out of a job. A lot of those people live up or in and around Seattle. That stresses the economy out. It's a very heavily reliant tourist city, very much so. Tacoma, not so much. Everett, not so much. All these other cities around us, not so much. So we're not feeling the pinch as much. That's not to say that we don't have a lot of places shutting down for good, because we do, and that's unfortunate. But the effect is bad in Seattle, and you do have some panic going on. I think you have a lot of politicians up there panicking, but it's creating a lot more problem versus sitting down, sitting back, and chilling, and trying to come up with a better policy that will involve business leaders and getting them in the room versus pushing them out the room and saying, I'm going to make a policy that's going to help everybody because these companies are bad and they basically take from, but they don't provide to the community. And it's a bad approach. So I think I think that is the stress that Seattle is feeling. Tacoma does offer a lot of good benefits, and it is a decent sized city. There's a lot of growth happening in Tacoma, just like there is in this whole entire region. I don't think it's unreasonable for your husband to go from here. I don't know where he works, but to go from here up to Seattle. That happens all the time. People do that daily. Do I think the quality of life in Tacoma is better than Seattle? It is. And I've been saying that. I had people who criticize that, but the quality of life in Tacoma is by far better than it is up in Seattle. I don't have to worry about, parking downtown, for example. I don't have to worry about tons of traffic everywhere. I don't have to worry about, like, Noelle can go to the studio and come back home. So that's going downtown and back home. She can do all that basically in 15 minutes at most. And that's stopping at stoplights or whatever, cutting straight through town. You know what I mean? There's a lot of parks here. I mean, you can't really knock the city for not having parks. We have a lot of great parks, from Wright Park to Dune Peninsula to what's the one? I can't remember. It's a natural creek type deal. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do. You know what I'm saying? We have a lot of great schools. So the quality of life here is really good. Museum campus, University of Washington downtown. We have a lot of stuff. The fact that we are still holding steady and still moving upward is a testament to that. that the city has dealt with this type of stuff before. This is kind of new for everybody, obviously. But what Seattle is facing now is kind of new to them. This is something that Tacoma has dealt with for the past however time. It was the city that nobody wanted to invest in, that businesses shut down, that people had to figure stuff out. And that's happening right now to Seattle. And I think that that is going to be more and more of an issue as time goes on. As far as locations, I get this question all the time. On our Discord, we have a section that says Seattle, Tacoma, or no. I don't know. It says Tacoma, and it has a neighborhood map. You can click on these different sections, and it's from a realtor's place, a realtor's office. But you can click on these different little neighborhoods throughout Tacoma, and it kind of gives you an idea. It tells you some of the businesses that are there, tells you the average income, I think, and it tells you the average price for homes. It tells you a lot of different things, right? It gives you a little bit of an idea of the communities that are there. That is where you should go. I don't want to necessarily guide people to a certain area because I don't know. I don't know enough about your income or about any of that, what your needs are, what you're looking for. But relatively speaking, most places in Tacoma, it's pretty easy to get from point A to point B pretty easy. We have a great highway system that runs through the city. It's not hard. Would I live in places like Puyallup? Nothing against Puyallup. I think it's a great city. The answer is no. Only due to suburban traffic. Suburban traffic outside of Tacoma is rough. I'm sorry, it's rough. When you go into places like Spanaway and Puyallup, not so much University Place because it's kind of right there, but sometimes University Place, some of these other places, right? The traffic is kind of rough, in my opinion, because those cities have really ballooned over the last few years, and the roads are so tiny and narrow. There's not a lot of road infrastructure. To me, it's a headache. It wouldn't be for me, and I'm not someone who really likes to be in the car anyway. So for me, it would have to be a place like Tacoma, hands down. And I would say probably anything north of 70th Street, to be honest with you. And there's tons of options there. There's tons of options. But I do think that, yeah, a lot of people have looked at this area, gave it a second look. A lot of people who never even considered at all wanting to come here are now saying, yeah, I'd rather come here and live here as opposed to living up in Seattle. Again, nothing wrong with Seattle, but I have gotten, I can't even tell you the number of emails I get of people asking about specific, and I'm not a realtor, but they're asking about specific locations here in Tacoma, and I would say 90% of those are from Seattle. So I decided to do this video just kind of cover the whole deal. But I am not a realtor. I don't know. I would say get your realtor first. The only thing we have is on our Discord, which kind of tells you the neighborhood and all of that, but it's pretty broad. The best thing to do is to come down here. I always tell people, if you're going to live and buy a house, come down here, get an apartment, and stay in the area for a bit. Know the city, and then you can kind of figure out what's going to be the best for you. If that's not going to work and you have too much junk like what we have and you need a house, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. But I would definitely get with a good realtor who can help you with finding what's going to make the best fit for you, and I would go for it. Now, I mention all the time, there's a lot of cool cities from DuPont to Ording to other places that would be great cities if you don't want to live right in Tacoma. There's even cities that are up on the mountain. I wouldn't live there because they shut the roads down, but for most of the year. But again, traffic is a headache, in my opinion. I couldn't do it. So for me, it's going to always be Tacoma. There's just a lot of amenities here. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's more things to do. It's a fairly safe area. As long as you keep your hands to yourself, so to speak, then you'll be fine. It's not to say that's always the case or what have you, but most of the time, as long as you wrap yourself around your family, you'll be good. But yeah, I would say it's not uncommon. I've never had in the last, I don't know, go back since I've lived here, which is now 3.5 years. I've never had just boom after, like I thought it was just fake, but I've had email after email after email after email of people you know, hey, I'm from Seattle, you know, what's a good location? Hey, I'm thinking about moving down there. What's a good location? Hey, you know, I found you on YouTube and you're talking about Tacoma and I'm thinking about it. Or, hey, you know, I grew up outside of there and I moved up here, you know, 20 years ago and I'm thinking about coming back down there to live and buy a house. And I've gotten more of that in the last month, excuse me, than I've had in the last 3 years. So, yeah, I don't think you're uncommon. I would say it's going to be pretty hard to find a house, but if you sell the house up in Seattle, you probably will have enough to get what you need down here. Houses are just more up there. But anyhow, I can go on and on and on and on. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Join our Discord. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.